the Center for Spiritual Living here in San Clemente. We're so glad you're here with us in the sanctuary, and if anyone's watching from home, I'm not sure if that's happening today, but if you are, welcome, welcome, welcome. And we'd like you to please stand and join us on our first sing-along song, an original by Mr. Rick Dale called I Am Enough.
If ever I fly, God knows why. The mind that knows all will not let me fall. When I feel blind, God's light shines through you and me as harmony. Go with the flow, and God lets me know that the balance of life is a dance of love. Though good may seem far, it's near as you are. Though bad may be here, it will disappear in the middle of through you and me as harmony. I am enough, I'm made of God's stuff. I go with the flow, and God lets me know that the balance of life is the dance of love. Whenever I fail, God fills my sails, and when I succeed, it's not only me, it's a limitless life that makes it all right. Through you and me as harmony. I am enough, I'm made of God's stuff. I go with the flow, and God lets me know that the balance of life is a dance of love. I am enough, I'm made of God's stuff. I go with the flow, and God lets me know that the balance of life is a dance of love.
Yes, I am enough, and so are you. So are you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Center for Spiritual Living in beautiful San Clemente. You know, sometimes I look out here and all I see are beams of light, because we are star beings, aren't we? Having this fabulous, sometimes challenging, sometimes unusual human experience. First of all, though, we're spiritual beings, and we know that. We feel it, and we feel it within our very essence of who we are. So whoever you are, whatever path you're on, you're welcome here. You can call this home. I've called it home for 30 years. So it's a long time, and we love it. We love it. We filled it. Oh, Reverend Alice did a meditation this morning that filled this sanctuary with such peace and presence. Oh, if you were here, it was just wonderful. It was great. So we're going to start with the flames of faith, just like we start every Sunday morning, to remember and recognize that we're all connected and we're all one. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all sentient beings, come from the one great universal presence that we call spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We light the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and the practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of compliance with the will of God as the highest calling. We light the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and the path of peace. We light the candle for all forms of new thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. And as our practitioner, Tony Sparks, lights that last candle, let it represent the path that brought you here this morning.
Let us go within and celebrate the presence of God that lights up the universe with its presence. And God is beauty and joy and harmony and peace. It is eternal wisdom and intelligence. It is whole, perfect, and complete. And all that God is lies within us. We are each beautiful expressions of the one. It flows in and through, intuits us, allows us to be all that we can be. And I am so, so grateful for this light that lives within, that shines, gets to shine through us, to light up our universe, our lives, in a beautiful way. And knowing that this presence is always with us, always guiding and directing us into new and beautiful ways of being, I say thank you, God. Thank you for this opportunity to express this presence which lives within me. And so with so much gratitude for this morning, for this beautiful, beautiful day, and for knowing that we are being inspired, we are being impressed with truths, with being guided and directed by the science of mind and spirit that guides us in our teachings. And so grateful for the law, which always says yes, which is the power and the activity. And knowing that this law manifests for each and every one of us. Knowing this truth, I say yes. And as we say together, and so it is. And now we will say all together the affirmation. And it is, the power of God rises in me, and I am free. Okay. And so it is. And the declaration of principles. I believe in God, the one creative intelligence, operating through the universe and operating throughout my entire life, now and always. I believe this spirit operates upon a law of mind and creates my experience exactly according to my belief. I believe this perfect creative intelligence can be used by me and by every other person to create health, abundance, and love in mind, body, and total life experience. I use it now, and I rejoice in it, and so it is.
Thank you so much, Tony. And now let's welcome back Chelsea Van.
Some dreams live on in time forever. Those dreams you want with all your heart, and I'll do whatever it takes. Follow through with the promise I make, and put it all on the line. What you hope for at last will be mine. And so I reach higher, just for one moment touch the sky. For that one moment in my life, I'm gonna be stronger. Know that I've tried my very best and put my spirit to the test. And so I reach. Some days are meant to be remembered, and those days we rise above the stars. So I'll go the distance this time, seeing more the higher I climb, and the more I believe, all the more that those dreams will be mine. And so I reach higher, just for one moment touch the sky. From that one moment in my life, I'm gonna be stronger, and know that I've tried my very best and put my spirit to the test. And so I reach, and so I reach.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Chelsea. I love that song, and it's perfect with the theme that we have for this month, which is really reaching higher. So thank you so much. Let's give her another round of applause. Oh, boy. Well, I'm Alice Reed. You should know that by now, but maybe some of you are new. Good to see you all. I think I'm done moving. My moving truck arrived on Friday with the big pieces of furniture and the rest of my things. So I would tell you that I moved here, but I'm not quite organized yet. I'm still got, I could find my tiara, but then I couldn't find some of my books and supplements and important things that I really needed. Moving is quite an adventure. And I don't know how many of you have moved multiple times, but maybe you forget. You forget how discombobulating it is and how it takes some time to get grounded again. And so I'm working on getting grounded and feeling at home. I've learned some of your roads. I'm still learning some of, they're my roads now, right? I'm finding my way around the community. And so this week will be my first full week in the office. And so I'm happy to. And I really want to thank you for your patience with me as I move, during a global pandemic. It's a little different than the last time I moved, even though the last time was clear across the country. We met with the ministers, and today we're meeting with the practitioners, and we're looking at the fall programming, and so I'm going to give you a little highlight about what's coming up. We will be teaching a class called Financial Freedom. I'll be teaching it, and I'll start in the third week in October. Pam and I are putting together some information so you can register for that class. And registration will be required so that we can make sure you have the materials you need. Did I mention the name is Financial Freedom? And we're going to do it a little bit differently. I'll teach the class twice in a week. I'll teach it on Tuesday mornings at 10:30 in person for those that are comfortable being in person here in the center. And then I will teach it again on Wednesday nights on Zoom at 6:30. Now, I'll ask you to register for one or the other class, but what this also will help you do is if you get a conflict that comes up, because we all have things that come up, you can come to the Zoom class if you're the in-person class and vice versa, and it'll allow you to stay up with the curriculum. But there's something magical that happens when we're in class and we're doing our breakout sessions and we're getting to know people. And so I'll ask you to consider which class you want to be part of so that you can have those deepening of relationships. I love class. Class changed my life when I began to sit and absolutely begin to mirror some of what was going on with me, and I could see it happening with my fellow students. So I hope that you'll join us for that. And then the other thing that's coming up is we'll be doing our annual Committed Giving campaign, and that'll start on October 24th, and this year's theme is Digging Deep. We're going to go ahead and dig deep with our spiritual practices. We'll try to come up with some workshops and exercises so that you can really dive into your spiritual practice and that thing that we come here for, to open up, to expand, to evolve. And so we'll be doing a little programming around the Fall Committed Giving campaign. So I hope that you'll join us for that. It'll be wonderful. We'll do some things online. We'll do some things here. I'm still getting my sea legs. So I look forward to this fall, and then the ministers and I will begin to, and the practitioners, to look at next year's theme and the activities. So the last 9 months, speaking of evolving, the last 9 months we've been following the themes, the global themes that centers all over the country, let alone world, are following. And this beautiful theme that we're looking at is ancient wisdom, evolutionary vision. And we've been spiraling around these topics each month as we begin to spiral upward throughout the year. And so here we are at the end of 9 months, and we're finishing up the month of reaching higher. And today's topic is I still rise. And still I rise, and still I rise. It's named after the famous poem by Maya Angelou. And I would say that as we are reaching higher and looking to rise, we're not necessarily looking to rise above, but we're looking to rise in consciousness. And I think there's a distinction there, because sometimes when we look to rise above, we might be tempted to do what I would call a spiritual bypass. And we really want to be able to have a full experience in this thing we call life, in this human body of ours. Ernest Holmes has a wonderful quote that I want to share with you today. He says, this power for good uses every part of my human experience, the joyous and the challenging, the pleasure and the pain, to guide me into a deeper awareness and a knowingness of itself as me. In God, nothing is wasted. All of my life experiences are used by the power of good, enabling me to help others and to bless the world. So as we look at this spiraling theme of evolutionary vision, we really are looking at moving from a mastery of life working for us to a world that works for everyone. And we're looking at this evolutionary vision of how we can walk this out. And in order for us to do that, it does require that we raise our consciousness, that we indeed rise up. But one of the things that I have learned about spiritual growth is that it is not just about transcendence. It's about including and transcending. That everything that I have experienced in my lifetime, the things that were really wonderful and joyous and the things that were heartbreaking, have been necessary for me to get to the point that I am here. Now, sometimes I need a breakthrough, right? And sometimes the only way to get to a breakthrough is a breakdown. Sometimes things have to fall apart before they can come together. Now, when I was coming up in this philosophy, as I was beginning to understand the power of this philosophy, I was taught early on that my thoughts create my reality. And so if I was having a not so lovely experience, I wouldn't want to think about it. I don't want more of that. I don't want to give attention to that. And as an early student of this science, many of you may have had this same experience. You wanted to rise above something. You wanted to move past something. Only to find when I would kind of come around that spiral of evolution that here it would come again at another level. I'd be like, oh, this again. No, I took care of that. I rose above it. I traded for it. I don't have to deal with that anymore. One of the things that I have learned and have come to really respect is that this human experience that we're having is God-informed too. All of it. All of it. And so in order for me to really begin to grow and expand and to have that raised up consciousness that can really manifest and demonstrate the life that I'm looking to live, I've got to be able to be willing to look at a discordant condition long enough to extract my power from it. And so we talk about turning away from the condition. But what I want to encourage you to do is to look at that condition long enough, to face the fear, to face the challenge, to face the pain long enough so that whatever wisdom is in that moment, that you glean that wisdom, that whatever needs to open up in you, whatever it is that you need to begin to have that more expanded awareness of life, that we can let go of those experiences of the past in a way that's very intentional and mindful. And I don't know about you, but I live in this culture that tells me that I'm trying to make everything really easy. I'm trying to, I want things to flow. I want things to be joyous. I'm a religious scientist, and my thoughts create. But not that. I didn't create that. Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And so when we look at this idea of dealing with struggle and challenges, Ernest Holmes has a great quote that I can't capture right now that talks about that struggle, and it reminds me that pain is inevitable, but struggling and suffering are optional. And so when we find ourselves in a challenging experience, when we find ourselves suffering, this is the time for us to look at the condition that is causing us pain, that is causing us suffering, and to see what it is that wants to come through, to see what it is that wants to break through. Because, as you know, while we have all been taught, I know I have, that I'm whole, perfect, and complete, I don't always feel whole, perfect, and complete. And it might just be me. Maybe I'm the only one. But sometimes when I look out in the world, it doesn't look very whole, perfect, and complete. And as a religious scientist, you've probably been taught that anything that isn't whole, perfect, and complete is something to be rejected. And as a religious scientist, if you've been coming to this teaching for any amount of time, I bet you've had the experience of isolation that I have, that when things aren't whole, perfect, and complete, and when I'm having a struggle and a condition that doesn't look lovely, like, I can't tell them. I can't tell anybody I'm going through this. Oh my God, what will they think? What am I thinking? What I really have come to honor and to find very precious is this idea that life is on an axis for me, and that my job is to allow heaven to come to earth. And in order for me to do that in this being, in this body temple, in order for me to allow heaven to come to earth, then I've got to be open to whatever it is that God wants to use for me to open up and to be that perfect expression. And there have been lots of times when I have found myself holding on to something that I shouldn't have been holding on to, that was really standing in the way, but I couldn't see it until the heartbreak happened, until the breakdown happened, until things weren't lovely. And that idea of pain is inevitable, but struggling and suffering is optional, is the fact that I have come to know that I'm going to have my reaction. I'm going to have my feeling. The stuff's going to come up, and I might not feel really mindful and balanced right at the moment. But something else is happening when stuff comes up. I'm seeing what's still lodged in my consciousness. I'm seeing some old beliefs and old ideas. I'm beginning to recognize that there are some things that I want to clear. There's a wonderful poem by, no, I want to read this first. Cheryl McCreary she's a wonderful practitioner. She's about to become a minister. I think you'll see great things from her in our movement. And she wrote this: in New Thought, we tend to avoid pain and suffering via spiritual bypass or other forms of denial. We see it as other or bad, rather than an evolutionary opportunity to be clear openings for the greater expression of spirit. Bypass is a temporary and ultimately unsatisfying fix, that word's important, that robs us of the deep lessons, wisdom, and power that challenging life experiences can offer us. Instead of running from pain when it comes to visit, what if we leaned into the process of listening closely to hear what pain has to teach us? What if we reframed pain as an expression of spirit, a holy portal that leads us to the center of our own unique power and purpose? What if pain was yet another way for us to experience our power? Now, I am first in line when it comes to running from pain. When something comes up that I don't want to experience, yeah, when I'm uncomfortable, I know the things that I reach for. It might be a muffin. Oh, that'll make me feel better. That'll give me some comfort food, right? Sometimes it's other ways that I find to comfort myself. Getting lost in a book. Going out and doing something fun so I don't have to deal with the mess and the challenge that's in front of me. But I have learned over time to watch myself, and what'll happen is that I will say, oh, you don't want to feel that, so you're doing this. And then I can consciously still do that, still eat that muffin, still do that escape to give myself a little break so that I can come back to it and begin to deal with whatever it is that has come up for us. Because what I learned quickly in my tenure as a religious scientist is I still get flat tires. Do you remember being disappointed early on, like you thought it was all supposed to be a rose garden, and then stuff started happening and we were like, wait a minute, I didn't treat for that. Life still happens, and there are amazing things that I have experienced and connections that I have made and depths that I have plumbed because I've been willing to be present with the pain or the discomfort. And oftentimes, one of my favorite go-to quotes is from Emma Curtis Hopkins, and it goes like this: when you're in the middle, and I'm going to invite you to remember this, when you're in the middle of something that's really uncomfortable, maybe it's downright painful, you can remember Emma's words, this too is God, this too is good, and I demand to see the blessing in it. This too is God, this too is good, and I demand to see the blessing in it. So I wanted you to think about something that's not so lovely that's happening in your life right now. It could be something personal, it could be something global. Just bring it forward and repeat after me. This too is God. This too is good. And I demand to see the blessing in it. There you go. Remember that. It will help to realign you in moments of struggle, in moments of suffering, in moments when pain comes up. I have a dear friend who is married to a minister in this movement, and he told me a story about coming up in the 1980s, or late 80s in our movement. His husband was not a husband at that time, because in the late 80s it wasn't legal for men to marry each other, but he was with his partner who was a new minister, and they were he was going to classes, he was going to services, he was starting to get a handle on this thing we call science of mind, and he kept hearing this thing about oneness and that everything's God. And they were at Asilomar, and if you remember the summer conferences we used to have, sometimes they were in the spring, and there would always be a Friday night dance. And my friend shared with me how he and his partner were slow dancing in the late 80s. Think about it. And my friend's partner's mentor came up and gently whispered in their ear that they were making people uncomfortable. That intimacy that people were experiencing between two men was very disconcerting, and that if this minister wanted to get ahead, he might consider that. Now, this was the late 80s, and I think we've really evolved since then. But one of the things that my friend did was he had no axe to grind. He wasn't trying to get ahead. He wasn't trying to be a practitioner. He wasn't trying to be a minister. So he challenged this person, and he simply said, it's either all God or it's not. It's either all God or it's not. And so he, along with many other gay individuals in our movement, really pushed the envelope at that time of our movement and really made space for people to open up and to be who they were in their full authenticity. So I don't know what you're seeing out in the world, that it's going to be different for each of us, where you're thinking that's not God. I'm going to challenge you and invite you to try to see the God in it, even in the unlovely things, even in the hurtful things, even in the things that break your heart. Because in order for us to create a world that works for everyone, we need to be able to include and transcend, to bring things forward, to begin to see God in all of it. I want to end with this great poem by Rumi. You may have heard it. It's called The Guest House, and this is Coleman Barks' translation. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So this week's invitation to you is to rise because of your difficult situations, to rise because of your pain, to rise because of whatever challenge comes before you. Because of it, not in spite of it. Thank you very much. And so as is my way, I want to pray. And so I hope you'll join me, and then we'll have our wonderful soloist back up again. So I invite you to close your eyes. You might even want to put your hands on your heart, knowing that the invitation for this week is to be tender in the world, to find that space when you can be with the things that are hard to be with, to be with the things that hurt. For I promise you that the benevolent, holy, absolute, and self-existent cause did not bring you here to suffer. You were brought here to fly. You were brought here to live out loud. You were brought here to be authentic. And so whatever it has come before you that doesn't feel like it's moving in the direction of your heart's desire, tenderly ask it what it's come here to give you. And then release it, knowing that love will make the way and dissolve all things unlike it. that each one will continue to open their heart and to be that place where God is expressing itself in its own unique way. We don't have to understand it. We don't even have to like it. But we do have to find the God in it. And so I know for each one that we open our hearts, that we walk out our day and our week in tenderness, seeing God where others don't, and trusting that even when we can't see it, it's there. And so it is with a grateful heart that I speak this word for each one, that I know this highest truth, that we are indeed walking the sacred path to create a world that works for everyone, to create a world that works for us, to be that loving presence, that healing presence that the world needs right now. I give great thanks for this, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you very much. Come on up.
Before another sunrise wakes me, before another